One big myth is some kids won't be able to read. So there's this like acceptable rate of failure, I feel, in our system, which should not be a thing. When children fail, we all do it.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand that the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. Today's episode is in collaboration with Ashoka Canada, a global network of leading changemakers and social entrepreneurs. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. So welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I'm joined by Camesha Cox, who is a multi-award-winning change agent, community connector, education sector trailblazer, and Ashoka Fellow. As the founder and executive director of the Reading Partnership, she brings over a decade of experience designing and delivering local and international school and community-based literacy intervention programs and educational resources aimed at challenging institutional barriers faced by low-income Black and immigrant communities. Camesha's leadership, community development, and advocacy have garnered global acclaim, most recently as an inductee to the Scarborough Walk of Fame. Congratulations. Camesha is an Ontario certified teacher with a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Education from the University of Windsor, a Master's of Education from the University of Toronto, a graduate diploma in social innovation from the University of Waterloo, and a certificate in executive nonprofit leadership from Stanford University's Graduate School of Business. Welcome to the show, Camesha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it sounds like you have some expertise around education from the lived experience trajectory, and also from the actual expertise you have as a scholar and now as a nonprofit leader. So I'm so excited to have this conversation because I believe I have a PhD in education. So we have that in common in terms of our love for the power of education and what literacy can mean. So as I do with all of these conversations, I'd love to begin with the backstory. I wonder if there's anything that you'd like to share, the twists and turns in your life that would sort of explain where you are today and why you're here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it has been quite a journey. And, how far back should we go? Maybe, my time as a teacher candidate, graduating from teachers college, no real opportunities in Ontario at the time. And so I left and I went to be a supply teacher in the UK and landed at a school, the Bridge Academy. And after a week of supply teaching, they asked me to stay, and they said they wanted me to be their literacy specialist. And straight out of teachers college, I definitely didn't deserve that title. But I definitely worked for it. And that experience at that school kind of set the trajectory for the rest of my career as an educator. It was there in the UK that I rolled out a literacy intervention program for high school students, who were struggling with literacy. Kids in grades 7, 8, and 9, reading at primary levels. I still remember working with Tiffany, uh, grade 7, who read her first word with me. And that is kind of what totally disrupted what I understood about the education system. It made me start to question, whoa, what's going on here? How is it possible for a young person to get all the way to grade 7 without having the skills needed to really succeed in school and in life? How is this possible? So Tiffany slipped through the cracks, and so many other young people slipped through the cracks. And it was there that I started to think about, okay, how do we seal the cracks? How do we actually, instead of trying to intervene, right? When kids get to grade 7 and 8, how can we get in front, of the problem? How can we ensure that kids get the start that they need? And so I left the UK. I came back to Toronto to start my master's, and I graduated. And again, it was difficult. Couldn't find work. I interviewed. It was just hard to really land a job in Ontario at that time. And in talking to a mentor, she reminded me of the things that I was talking about when I came back from the UK, and this idea that I wanted to develop a program that got in front of the problem, right? And that worked with parents and caregivers to support their children with learning to read. And she said, right now, United Way has an opportunity for residents who felt that they had a solution to their community's biggest problems to actually get some funding to get that started. Why don't you, apply and see if you can get started on this, program that you want to that you want to develop. And so I did that. We got the funding, and in 2012 we launched the first reading partnership for parents program. So really, the work I do as executive director of the reading partnership, really it was supposed to be a program, right? The reading partnership for parents program, and here we are to today, a full-blown charity.
That's an incredible story, and I'm happy that Tiffany crossed your path, and I'm glad you had a mentor that was wise enough to remember the excitement and enthusiasm you had coming back from that UK experience. Yeah. I have been onto your website, and the reading partnership I see is committed to enhancing literacy for all kids. You underline and italicize all kids. And it does this by providing wraparound early stage evidence-based supports to narrow disparities in literacy outcomes. So I know so I think the acronym you use for the reading partnership is TRP. Is that right?
It is,
Right.
yes.
Okay. And you work directly with parents and caregivers. You offer free culturally inclusive resources and programming that center Black and racialized families and engage parents in their own kids' learning. So how do you do this exactly? How do you operate, and sort of, can you walk us through like the mission of the organization?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we at the Reading Partnership, we have three core programs that we deliver. The Reading Partnership for Parents program, which was our first initiative, where we're teaching parents and caregivers how to teach their children to read, and we're walking them step by step through the process. Um, there's Kids Read, which is a virtual book club that right now it's Kids Read TO. So we're focused on Toronto or the GTA more broadly. And kids across the GTA connect online through Good Books. So they get mailed a physical copy of a book, and then they, meet once a week for 6 weeks with their peers across the city that are reading, and they're meeting with reading coaches. And it's a really cool culture and environment for learning that we're creating after school, right? It's not a school day program. And so that's really cool. And then the third program is 360 Stories, where we're giving kids the 360 experience of bringing a book to life, from writing to editing to illustrating to publishing and presenting. So in that program, kids 9 to 12 get the one-to-one support, or sometimes small group support, that they need to write the story that they want to tell. And then we publish those stories in beautifully created anthologies. And I've lost count now. I think we're on our 13th, 12th or 13th anthology. We've worked with close to 200 kids. We're about to launch another anthology at the end of this month, and just really excited and proud of the work that we do and the impact that we're making. And of course, families are at the center of what we do, more so with the Reading Partnership for Parents program, where parents and caregivers are also the direct recipients of the program as well. So Um, yeah, that's what we do when we're looking at scaling our work. So we also work with program delivery partners around the Reading Partnership for Parents program. So the way that we understand that parents across our city and country really need access to that program. And so, can we be in all places at once? No. So we're working with program delivery partners. We're training other organizations how to deliver the Reading Partnership for Parents program in all of its forms, because that's a very dynamic program. It's delivered live online. It's delivered as an in-person program, and then we also have a completely digital format that allows parents and caregivers to move through that program at their own pace from their own space. But that program is being scaled through program delivery partnerships. So organizations being trained, and we're supporting them as they deliver that program in the communities that they serve and know best.
Yeah. Wow, that's high impact work. Oh my gosh, talk about being on purpose. I'm reminded of, so I'm going to share a little story and then invite you to maybe share a story. So one of the earliest social entrepreneurs that I ever interviewed, so as part of my PhD work, was John Wood, who's the founder of Room to Read. And so he was building schools and libraries all over Southeast Asia. And I can send you lots of information if you're interested ever in talking to him. But when I still remember him telling me the story, like, it's hard work to be a social entrepreneur. It's hard work to be an executive director, right? You've got, only 24 hours in a day. You also need to rest. You probably have your own, responsibilities outside your workplace. And there's, you just want to give more and more and more because the need is so great and you just know the impact is there. So I asked him if he could share what keeps him motivated. And he told me that he remembers being at a ribbon cutting for a new school that was opening up, and two children from the village had actually snuck into the building overnight. So by the time everybody woke up the next morning, they were in the library already, like digesting books because they were just so excited. And I could get really moved by that story because I know how much it touched him. So I wonder, like on a personal level, I know your role, but on a personal level, is there any story that comes to mind that talks about, the difference this organization's making?
Uh, I mean, yeah, there's so many, and that's, the reason why I love the reading the comments on feedback forums is because you get to hear a little bit more about the the impact or what the program means to the participants. And I'm more removed from program delivery now than I ever was, right? I went from frontline developing and delivering the programs to now, you know, um, uh, overseeing the entire organization, and so, but I just think about people like Tiffany, like, and I remember when she read her first word, she didn't have the confidence. So she sound blended act and then still looked up at me and said cat with a question mark behind it because she wasn't sure. But she did it, right? And so I was like, yes. And that boost of confidence that she had when approaching the next word, right? She still had that question at the end, right? But she approached it with more confidence. Um, and it's just that moment when when it finally clicks for them, right? You've been doing all of this work to support them in learning their sounds and getting them to a point where they can start to approach sound blending, and it's a really challenging thing, right? It's challenging. Learning to read is very challenging for kids. um and but seeing that moment, those eyes light up, and then also being able to witness when parents are witnessing that, right? So it's like, as an educator, um, it's such a beautiful experience to see a child's confidence improve, see their belief in themselves like really start to develop. And I wanted to create that that experience for parents too, so that they could be witness to this. But there are so many other examples, families that are return families. I have one parent who, all five of her girls have been through our programs. So she continues to return. I actually just this week in going out to observe a program saw a parent. I'm just observing and I saw a parent and I said, "Wow, this lady looks so familiar." And so does the little boy. And then I said to her, I know you. Have you been in this program before? Her son, who is now 16 years old, went through our program 10 years ago, right? And she had another son who's now 5, who she was insisting, like, that had to be in this program as well, because this is how her older son learned to read. And so just, being able to connect with a parent like that saw the value so much so that 10 years after the fact, she would want to make sure that her son again has access to this program. And she's witnessed to also how things have shifted and changed and improved as well. And so I just think that that's just invaluable.
Love it. And I see the way your face lights up too when you talk about it. So that needs to be acknowledged. I wonder if you could share, Camesha, what some of the myths are or misconceptions that people still have about literacy in the first place. What do you think we need to know?
Yeah, I think that, one big myth is some kids won't be able to read. So there's this like acceptable rate of failure, I feel, in our system, which should not be a thing. When children fail, we all do.
Mm.
And so, in the community that I started this work in, 49% of kids not meeting the provincial standards for reading, and that, and these are kids in grade 3 classrooms. And when you look at kind of what the outcomes have been, we're looking at 25 plus years of low outcomes in literacy in one particular community, right? To me, that's a system that says we don't care that there's an acceptable rate of failure, and provided that it's happening in specific, communities, it's less of an issue for us to respond to. The pandemic hits, however, devastates education, devastates reading outcomes for all kids across the board. And now, you have a government that's responding because um, the issue is now too far reaching and impacting, parts of the community and the society that we care more about. Therefore, it warrants a response. So, this idea that some kids won't be able to read, that there's an acceptable rate of failure, we definitely have to do away with that. We know that 95% of kids can learn to read well, unless they have, severe learning disabilities. We know that 30% of kids learn easily. We know that 70% of kids, their ability to learn really depends on their access to quality evidence-based instruction. And so, that's what we're providing when we're supporting parents and caregivers. We're using an evidence informed approach to supporting them when we're training community-based organizations on how to deliver the program to the communities they serve. They're being empowered with an evidence-informed um, model for improving literacy. And so that's how we're addressing that. I think another misconception or myth is that it's never too late to start. While that is true, that it's never too late. I really feel like we have to do away with the intervention culture, right? Where we're intervening. It's about disrupting what's already gone wrong, right? We need to really be focused on preventing, getting in front of it, because it's never too late, but it's much harder when you wait, right? It's much harder when you wait. So I would say that those are the two myths.
Yeah, I it's amazing that it took the whole population being impacted for governments to start paying attention to certain communities that might have been struggling. I think that's a very important point to make. So how can learning, tell me, Camesha, kids right now are paying attention to their phones, their, TikTok, social media, video games, it's all fast paced. How can learning be made exciting to kids when teachers feel like they're competing against all of this like cool stuff?
Yeah, I always say that, kids are going to read, what they're interested in. So let them choose. Let whatever it is that they're reading be connected to their interests, to their identities. I think one of the things that really works for us is the community that we've created around reading. I think sometimes reading is seen as something that you do alone. It's your quiet time, it's your drop everything and read. It's not something that's always done as a community. And I remember in being a student and reading, and I remember the times when classrooms were better resourced, where we would all have a copy of Bridge to Terabithia and be following along as the teacher read aloud and as other kids were given an opportunity to read as well. And I just always remember liking that time in the classroom because of like the community, the opportunity to discuss and to think out loud, really. And kids aren't really getting that opportunity as much anymore. Like that, the classroom sets of books. Like sometimes kids are having to share math books, so the resources aren't always there. And so, through our Kids Read program, that's one of the things that we're big on, is that we're building kids libraries that kids deserve to have, copies of the books that they keep, that they own, that they can gift and pass on if they so choose. And so through that program, we're building libraries, and then we're creating this community, right, online, where they can come together, they can, chat it up with, their other kids who have now become their peers. There's a reading coach that's there to kind of read and help to support guiding the conversation. We're really, showing them through that program that their ideas matter and deserve to be heard. And I would say that community that we've created is why kids continue to show up, right? Every time we run that program, there's 150 kids that can be enrolled. Over 100 are joining us online, on a Tuesday evening after a full day of school, right? So I think it says something about the program design with that community, that feeling of safety and belonging that we've created for these young people.
Do you have an opportunity for volunteers to get involved with the reading partnership?
Opportunities for volunteers. So it really depends. We have a volunteer board.
Okay.
And with our programming, we actually we don't have volunteers for programming. We have paid opportunities. So, we say that we want the folks that are delivering programs to be reflective of the community. Sometimes we're working, well, a lot of times we're working with post-secondary students through that particular program, and there's a need for money, right? And so we honor that, and we honor that by creating paid positions. When it comes to one-time events and stuff, like we have an awesome festival coming up in the fall called The Next Chapter. It's happening October 5th. For that, for sure, we're going to need volunteers. But in terms of supporting our programs, facilitators are all paid.
Beautiful. Okay, well, we're going to learn a little bit more at the end about the Scarborough Town Center hosting the Next Chapter Literacy Festival, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay, so this is a podcast that focuses a lot on empathy, and I wonder what role you think empathy plays in the effective delivery of your programming.
I think that, empathy allows us to put ourselves in the shoes of the participant to really understand the challenges and barriers they're experiencing. And reaching out sometimes to get help can be a vulnerable experience, especially for, Black, racialized, and low income parents who may feel pushed out of the system or uh, unrepresented and have fewer opportunities to engage. So we really make it our business to know and understand the impact of our programs from the perspective of the participants. So we collect that participant feedback through surveys, or we hold focus groups to really understand, what worked for them and what didn't. We're also observing and just paying like close attention to how families interact with the resources they're given, with each other and with staff, so that we can see where there are points of friction, where we could improve something or develop something new. I mean, it's as simple as something like, I remember, like, when talking about putting yourself in the shoe of the parent or caregiver, I think really that's, or participant, that's how you design really good programs, right? Understanding what barriers to participation there might be, and then, like I said, the observation that happens in programming or through your feedback, process or loop. Um, but as an example, we have a number of resources that we've developed for the Reading Partnership for Parents program. And, there are cards that families have to use week over week, but every week there's a different grouping of cards that they have to, pull out. So they have this big deck of 37 cards, and just imagine every program you're kind of flipping through every single card to find the ones that you need, right? It can be frustrating. It takes a lot of time. It's eating into program time. So it's, observing something like that and saying, what can we do to make this easier for our participants, for facilitators? Like, how can we improve the program in this way um, to better meet the needs of the folks we're serving? What did we do? We introduced color coding, right? So now, instead of having to flip through the pack of 37 to look for all of the cards that you need, they're color coded. So now I can say, pull out your pink cards. Your pink cards are what we're using this week. And then it's so much easier to go through and identify those pink cards. We've, adjusted the program based on what we've observed, right? Or based on what we've heard from families, based on the frustration that they've expressed. We don't just allow them to express it and keep things the same. It's understanding again where the pain points are, and then making adjustments, right? And I think that has everything to do with empathy.
Well, yeah. So what I'm hearing is, not only do you care deeply about the experience of the children and their families, because there could be a whole host of things like shame or whatever attached to literacy. So there's empathy embedded, but then there's also a design thinking approach to how you deliver your programming, which definitely requires empathy. So thanks for that. I wonder also if you are familiar with, education also fits quite neatly into the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. One of the 17 is education. I've lately learned about the Inner Development Goals, which is a framework of 23 skills to develop inner capacities as a leader. I wonder if you, as a leader, running the organization, if there's a skill that you've noticed you've developed over time, or that you lean a little bit into these days. What do you think about the framework? Just wondering if you have any comments there.
Yeah, I think acting and collaborating are the two that really stand out to me. I mean, in the beginning, it was all about acting, to be able to move things forward. It was about being courageous, having ideas, envisioning possibilities, really being optimistic about the future and the change we're making and persevering through the challenges. But in order to you get to a place of being more strategic and effective in how we work, you have to really find people to act with and alongside you. And so I think that's where collaborating comes in. And collaborating is about the work you're doing together, but you realize that having only the work in common is not enough. You actually have to build deeper relationships. How can we collaborate without relating? How can we act without thinking? How can we collaborate without being? I think it's a useful framework, for thinking about where we've been, where we are now, and how to move forward.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I'm going to go a little deep into this and see whether or not there's a second book in me about them. Okay, thank you. I have two last questions. Camesha, you've been so generous with your time, and it's been really a pleasure to really learn more about the work that you're doing. I'm so happy that you're an Ashoka Fellow. So the question is about the Ashoka Fellowship, and I wonder if you could speak to how it's impacted your work.
Yeah, I think that being an Ashoka Fellow is a form of validation. It's an institutional stamp of approval, definitely for the reading partnership. I think that there's also validation from going through the process itself. The process is very rigorous. There are a lot of meetings, a lot of thinking, and really digging into the story of the reading partnership through my own journey of leadership and I came out of the process, I think, being able to be more clear, about the impact that we're making. um, and I think that good social entrepreneurs and leaders aren't we're not made overnight. The process really helped me refine, you know, how I communicate about the work that we do, and it helped me refine my little pitch. That we're really creating a world where every child learns and loves to read, right? And that really came out at the end of the process when we were developing my profile. Right at the top of that Ashoka Canada profile, is a world where kids learn and love to read, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's what we're doing.
Well, my daughter just turned 8, but she learned to read, I guess, about a year ago. And when it hit, it was like a whole new person exploded from her. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get the quote right, but I remember one day she just said, Mom, do you know that like reading a book is like going on a vacation in your head? I was really, really touched by her enthusiasm. She's a voracious reader. So I'm like, all for the work that you do. Such important work. Lastly, my final question of the day. Given that it's a podcast dedicated to empathy, I wonder if there's a story in your life, personal life, that you wouldn't mind sharing about when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you.
I would say that every time a funder says yes to us, I feel that we're on the receiving side of empathy. Really, it's like that they truly understand the work that we're doing and how important it is that we address this now. Because as I said before, it's never too late, but there's so much you lose when you wait. And so, we need folks that want to respond with a sense of urgency, to partner along with us. And, if I think about something that happened a little bit more recently, Scarborough Walk of Fame, there are folks that showed up that I wasn't expecting to see, and folks that we invited but didn't know would come. And um, one of the folks that we invited and didn't know if they would come was a volunteer that we had for our first program. and she was 12. So this was before we could pay anyone, right? We started with volunteers. Now we don't. Now we pay everyone, but um, she was a volunteer. She was a 12, but very adamant that she wanted to volunteer and stayed as a committed volunteer for a number of years. And I didn't actually get to see her at the Scarborough Walk of Fame, but she left a card for me. And in that card, she really talked about the ways in which she was inspired by, the work that I was doing, the energy that I was doing it with, and just really saying that what she saw then, she still sees now, and is so inspired by that. And I think that that was really nice. Sometimes it's the big things, you know what I mean, like funders writing big checks to say, here, keep on going. And then just as big as that are the thank yous that come sometimes, random thank yous um from parents who participated in our programs, or young people that participated in our programs, or like this, thank you and congratulations card that I'm receiving from one of our very first volunteers. Started with us at 12 and is now uh, 24, right? Or more, right? Yeah. So it's things like that really keep me going.
I love that that young girl came by many years later to drop off that card. And I do love all the donors that continue supporting your organization. So with that, please check out in the notes below of this show how you can make a donation, how you can learn more about what the Learning Partnership is all about. Also, I'll have information about the event. You want to say a couple of words about the Next Chapter Literacy Festival on October 5th in Scarborough?
Oh, well, yeah, we're launching our an annual festival called the Next Chapter. It's at the center of Scarborough. It's going to be the largest literacy festival outside of the downtown core. I'm really excited about it. Obviously, this is the first year. The vision is that it's going to be the largest literacy festival. And we're really excited about hosting it at STC, the center and the heart of the community. And what else is there to mention? That for anyone that wants to get involved or to learn more about the Reading Partnership, visit our website, readingpartnership.com. Follow us on social media, whether that be LinkedIn, Facebook, or IG. We're at TRP now, and sign up for our mailing list so that you can be in the know.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Camesha. We're taping this on a Monday. I hope you have a great afternoon. I hope to see you. My sister lives in Scarborough with her 7.5-year-old, so maybe we have to be there on October 5th to hang out with you and show our support for the great work you're doing.
Awesome. That would be great. That would be great. Everyone needs to come out. It's gonna
Super. Well, thank you everyone for watching and for listening, and we will see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
Thank you.
I want to extend a special thanks to Ashoka Canada for their support. Ashoka Canada is dedicated to fostering social innovation and supporting Canada's highest impact social entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you'll hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.